Chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia. 5 minutes for questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Gottlieb, for being here. And I want to commend you and thank you for your adherence to safety. And I think it's very important. It's been mentioned more than once during this hearing that there has to be a balance between accessibility and safety. And I think that's perhaps one of the areas that I struggle with. And you and I have had many conversations. I want to ask you, first of all, about the rulemaking process, because that's of great interest to me. Being a relatively new member of Congress, only my second term, my third, I guess I'm starting my fourth year now, so I'm getting older. But I'm still learning about the rulemaking process. And I noticed that since the passage of DQSA that you've used oversight guidance documents to really enforce this and to really enforce what you want the agency to see out there. And although we probably disagree, and we do disagree, you say it's with stakeholder input. I say it has not been with stakeholder input. And I'm just wondering how you can justify that, particularly in light of the fact that just recently the Office of the Associate Attorney General issued a new policy to the DOJ that guidance policies will not be converted into rulemaking. So how are you justifying this, that you're going to use guidance policy for rulemaking here?
Thank you, Congressman. We have a long history of issuing non-binding guidance in many contexts, and our guidance practices, and this question's come up in other contexts well outside this context, our guidance practices generally have been used as a model for other agencies and for OIRA as well, in terms of what we do, how we issue guidance, what we use guidance for under the Administrative Procedures Act. So, I feel confident that on the whole, and we can have a debate around any individual guidance, but I feel confident that on the whole, we've adhered to good practices in terms of how we promulgated guidance in multiple settings.
But I don't mean to interrupt, but you even answered Mr. Upton's, Representative Upton's question about the guidance that you expected and that you were using the guidance for enforcement. I mean, you're essentially saying that this guidance is going to be enforced. Even though the DOJ has been told that no, it cannot be converted into rulemaking. Quite honestly, I have not read this from the Associate Attorney General. Perhaps they said this is going to apply to the DOJ, but not to the FDA. I don't suspect that was the case. Maybe it is.
Well, we could take enforcement action now. We don't need the guidance document in order to take the enforcement action. The guidance document is a way to provide public discussion around how we intend to take our enforcement action, so we can both inform the public as well as learn from the public. The guidance document itself isn't the basis for the enforcement action. You're absolutely right. We have regulatory authority that's been given
what
by
about
Congress.
Stakeholder input? Because that is something that's very concerning to me, that I don't feel like we've had stakeholder input. I know that you're coming out with a new MOU. My hope is that you're going to have more stakeholder input into that. The existing MOU, although I was not here at the time, I don't think there was sufficient stakeholder input into that. One thing in particular about this is the difference between dispensing and distributing. As you know, the DEA has said that distributing is going to be overseen by the FDA, but the dispensing is going to be overseen by the state boards of pharmacies. Yet you seem to want to oversee dispensing as well through the FDA.
Well, I'm not familiar with the particular definition of dispensing and distributing, probably under the Controlled Substances Act that you've derived from, I don't know, is it a regulation or a guidance document? So I can't speak to how the DEA might have defined something in a certain context, again, under the Controlled Substances Act, which is my presumption. We believe that under this law and under the practice of pharmacy, with products that we regulate and outside of the context of controlled substances, the practice of pharmacy involves the dispensing of a product, just like the practice of pharmacy involves a patient.
But why is it that the FDA thinks that they have to intercede the state boards of pharmacy? That's always been something that the state boards of pharmacies. Okay, I've got just a few minutes left, and just a few seconds left. Now, I want to ask you about something that has been brought up by Mr. Gett, by Mr. Griffith, and that is office use. And that is something that I think you've absolutely got wrong here. But I want to ask you just from a perspective of a member of Congress. It's my understanding that not once, not twice, but 3 times through appropriations language that the FDA has been instructed to revisit this and to look at this. In fact, in 2016, it said, the committee understands the intent of the DQSA was not to prohibit compounding pharmacies from operation under existing 503A exemptions. Therefore, the committee directs the FDA to issue a guidance document on how compounding pharmacists can continue to engage in office use compounding. Why do you ignore these? Why have you not ignored it once, not twice, but 3 times? I don't get it.
Congressman, those appropriation riders, I believe, preceded my arrival at FDA. I'd be happy to work with this committee or anyone in Congress to contemplate if they want to have a discussion around the statute and what we can do to continue to improve this on this legislation. But we have to keep patients in mind and make sure patient safety drives the decision we make. And remember why we're here. We're here because pharmacies were engaging in manufacturing without any standards in place.
Dr. Gottlieb, I could not agree with you more. I commend you on your dedication to safety. Again, we get back to the balance between access and safety, and that's just, you and I live in different worlds. I mean, you're in a different world than what I previously was in my career in pharmacy, and I saw firsthand the access issue and how people struggle with it, and that is just a difference that we have, and that I hope that you will take into consideration in the future. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Congressman.
The gentleman yields back. So Dr. Gottlieb, once again.